Hello everyone and good morning. Welcome back to another lesson in this Introduction to Python series. In the last two videos, we started looking at the if statement and the if-else statement, but here in 2.3, we are going to introduce what we call the while loop, and you guys will know what that is soon enough. I decided to change it up for this lesson. I know it's probably kind of frustrating looking at just me typing in REPL for Python every single time, so I kind of went with more of a guided note structure for this lesson. So for this one, we're going to follow through on this little note structure, and then the next one I'll probably go back, but it should be a nice little change of pace for this lesson, and hey, maybe it'll be something that's actually more helpful to follow. So let's just get into it, and we have our little introductory scenario. Mr. Marshall tells his students that they can only use their phone when they have at or above an 80% for their grade. Matty McBee has an 89% when he hears this. Each day he loses 1% on his grade because he acts silly and tries to fight his classmates. How many days will it take for Matty to lose his phone privileges? So first off, and something I should have been emphasizing more all along, is actually trying to make a plan before you start coding. We call this pseudocode. Now the thing with pseudocode is it's generally important to kind of just outline what you're going to do in normal statements. So kind of just if I was in REPL here, it's kind of like if I took this, but instead of doing this, let me just comment this out a sec. Oh my god, I'm thinking of programming in C. Remember in Python you're using triple quotes to comment out large groups of code. So it's kind of like if I took this, but instead I just started commenting it out, and then I said like step one, if statement for height over 50. And then I said step 2, else if condition for height less than 50. And then I could say something like step 3, else condition. Something very easy to follow, and once you have your plan, you can really just code this out, no problem. And you wouldn't really be able to run into any errors, because if the logic's there, as long as you know how to code with the if statements, as long as you guys have been following along this little video series, you guys should know how to do if, else statements. So once you have your logic down, it's really, the logic is really a really important thing that cannot be overlooked. So let's just get back to this little note structure here. So without thinking of how you're going to code this, I want you to figure out a solution to what we're going to be doing here. So take a second and pause the video here, write out some potential pseudocode or what you would do, what your thoughts would be before we get into the rest of the lesson. So pause now. Did you pause? Come on now, pause. I'm watching you. Alright, I think you paused. Alright, so the second step here is all about what variables that we're going to be using here. So it's kind of important to look at this, and we know that there's going to be a variable for your grade. So there's going to be a variable for grade. You could potentially use a variable for days, but I don't think that's necessarily necessary. How about that? But we're definitely going to need a variable for percent, so that would be useful to just keep track of this as you run through. So what a while loop is in general. A while loop only runs while a condition remains met. Imagine if you combine an if statement with something else that forces a program to keep running. That's what a while loop is. In this scenario, the loop should only run while the grade is at or above 80%. So the syntax for the while loop, and this might be smushed, and I can show you guys more syntax in REPL, but condition equals true. So this is our Boolean, and then while it's true, it can run this. So if I wanted to do something else, I could say like counter equals 1. And then I could say while counter is less than or equal to 10, print counter. And then obviously we could do counter equals counter plus 1. And again, a very basic example of this, but that will obviously print out the numbers 1 through 10, and then we'll be printing our counter. So going back to our note structure, that's kind of the syntax of it, and it will run until it becomes false. The condition will need to change inside the loop. If you don't change the condition inside the loop, we call that an infinite loop. You always want to make sure that you have a way out of the while loop once you get in. If you do not have a way to get out, then your program is going to crash, or it's just never going to be able to end. So, and still for while statements, just like if statements, just like if else statements, just like else statements, we have the suite once again. So the suite is just make sure you have your colon after you write your while statement, and your colon will let you have your suite, and everything needs to be written in the proper suite. And you want to make sure that you have your 2 equal signs to test your condition for your while loop. So if I was going to do this, I could say equals equals 1, and then I don't know how that logic would work, but make sure you guys have 2 equal statements 2 equal signs when you're doing a condition. In this case, try to code the while loop to meet the scenario given for the problem. Remember that you will have to decrease the percent variable and increase the days variable every single time you run through the while loop. At the end, outside the suite, print how many days it took. The solution will be printed in the next step. So we are going to be using the days. That's probably the most effective way. So we're going to be printing how many days it took, and then so try coding this on your own, and then once you think you have that coded, come back and we will run through the solution together. So give it a pause right about now. Alright, I'll assume you paused, hopefully, and here is the solution. So you can ask questions here. We have percent equals 89, days equals 0. So while percent is greater than or equal to 80, we add the days, and then we subtract the percent. And then at the end here, we're going to print days. Very simple problem. Here's a few key issue questions, but I will have these in a Google Doc form, or maybe I'll make you guys do a little coding assignment with the while loops. I'm not really sure yet, but make sure that you know what the general gist is with how this loop stops running, and how you're comparing things, and about the suites. Very general questions here that you guys really should know. So that is all I have for this video. A bit of a long one today, but I feel like there was a lot of good content here. In the next and final video of this unit, we will introduce for loops. So I will see you guys in that next video. Have a good one, guys.